What's up, guys? Doug Polk here. And look, I've done some poker hands in my day. And this hand, some crazy shit. Now, there are a lot of things in poker you can overcome. Bad beats, high rake, maybe, beasting everything. But there are some things that might be just simply too much of a disadvantage. And today we're going to be finding out, is showing one of your hole cards one of those things? I really don't know. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
So yeah, Derek just limps in with the ace-king. I definitely think we should be raising, obviously, with that hand. AJ with pocket 10's definitely not going to let the limping get through. 300 to go.
Yeah, I flipped one of my cards over too. Oh, yeah, he's got...
Apparently the table thinks I have a nice pair of tits. Bang, bang.
He's got almost 3.5.
This has probably been one of the most friendly and lively tables we've been able to watch in the last month or so. Super friendly. 290 to call. Back over to Derek with ace and king. They're playing 7K effective stacks. Andrew with pocket threes can set mine
I
now.
flipped one of my cards over, man. Fuck.
Eldar calls.
Ricky, baby, if you win,
Oh, you win.
I get my
Can I play both hands?
Oh, wait, Rick was the one who raised. I thought AJ was the one who raised with 2 10s, but Rick was the one who raised.
You flipped over 8 of diamonds?
Yeah,
Harry, you're wasting time, bro. Come on.
hey, I flipped over fucking 8. I don't want to fucking muck it. Bush.
I mean, honestly, even though we're 200 blinds deep with Rick, I think because of the straddle, we should probably 3-bet to get it in against Rick's open with 2 10s. I mean, quite honestly, like, I'm extremely happy to stack off with 10s against Rick pre-flop.
Yes.
I'm calling, thank God.
Yes.
Thank God. Fuck. Let's go. 8 of diamonds.
He's got the 8 of diamonds in his hand.
One card.
Harry calls and exposes the 8 of diamonds.
No, it's right there, right there.
One card exposed for Harry.
Why you mad?
Let's go, bitches. I'm showing one card.
Why you mad? I love your hand.
This is fucking hilarious. This is the last hand, I think, for today, you guys.
So this hand starts at 10:20 at Live at the Bike. There's a little straddling going on. And to be honest with you, with the amount of just people involved in this pot, it's a little hard to see what happens. But it seems like it limps around to the small blind, who then decides to raise with King 10 offsuit. Don't do that. It won't make money. But that's hardly the only thing we've got going on in this hand. We have an ace-king limping into the pot. We've got pocket threes limping into the pot. I guess that's okay. Probably would rather raise it up if you're going to play it. We've got the button limping in with 8-6 suited. I actually don't mind that as much as some of the other plays, especially once other players have limped. We got king 9 limping in the cutoff. Just fold that garbage. And we got a lot of stuff going on here. It's a little too much to unpack, but basically don't do what almost any of these people are doing. Raise your ace king. Don't raise your king 10 in the small blind. And yeah, just don't be an idiot, pretty much. Now, pocket 10s facing the raise from king 10 is actually a bit of an interesting spot. I kind of like 3-betting just to try and isolate this pot. If you call, the avalanche behind can get going. So I think I like a 3-bet. I don't hate a flat either. He does decide to make the call. This is where things get a little peculiar and the ace-king decides to not limp re-raise. If you limp ace-king, it is a trap, and you gotta spring that trap on people. Limp calling ace-king, way too passive. I mean, look, this is just poker 101. Now, our action eventually gets back around to a player named Harry on the button with 8-6 suited. And it's a fitting name because that's the direction this hand is going. Now, you might be wondering, why is this that weird of a spot? He has 8-6 suited. Surely we should call, and you know what? You're probably right. However, one of his cards flashed, and he decided that he would make the call and show everyone at the table that he has the 8 of diamonds. I'm going to go ahead and recommend to not do that. But anyway, let's go ahead and take the flop.
Who's the tight ones that didn't call?
We have the 8 of diamonds already exposed. 7-5-3. Harry's open-ended, but he has the 8 of diamonds already exposed. This is ridiculous. Bottom set for Andrew here in seat 8. This is when the set mining odds will pay off here. AJ betting with the 2 10s, gonna get the bad news soon. Probably would have liked to 3-bet and stack off against Rick's open with 2 10s, even though we're super deep. Andrew just calls with his bottom set. Over to Harry with the card exposed. What the fuck? Is he gonna just call? He has to just call, right? He can't fold. He can't raise. He's showing an 8. There's no way he can raise. If he raises, the best hand he could have is 8-7.
I told you I wanted to.
He calls. Harry's like, oh, fuck, why'd I show a card?
Maybe
Hard.
play about 6K behind, right?
It's hard to full pocket there.
Yeah, true.
To the turn.
Three players.
I swear to God, they're just not paying me enough for this shit. I mean, this is what I do now. I commentate on people who show their hands This guy showed his hand pre-flop, and I'm about to analyze the strategy going on. You know, here's the thing about implied odds with your suited one-gappers. They're less implied and more just odds if you show one card. So before we take this flop, let's think about some hands that could be possible here. I wouldn't rule out 8-9 offsuit or 8-7 offsuit. I think those hands would be a bit loose, but possible. I feel like if it was a hand like 8-5 or 8-4 off, you'd probably just fold those hands. They're just such bad hands. So I think a lot of suited 8s could be possible, as well as 9-8 and 8-7. And you might be asking yourself, Doug, why does this stuff really matter? Because it's going to get important when stuff happens, and let's get the stuff going right now. Just want to give you guys a quick tip on game selection. If you're playing on a game with so many players reaching the flop that it requires both sides of the screen to squeeze their hole cards in, and one of those players has a card face up to the flop, you're probably in a decent game. So the flop comes 7-5-3. We have 6 players, so we have a lot of hands kind of at play. King 10 that raised pre-flop bricks. Pocket 10 doesn't overpair to the board. Ace King bricks if you could have only played aggressively somehow. Pocket 3's flops is set, clearly out in the lead. King 9 bricks the flop, and 8-6 for Harry, our player with the 8 of diamonds exposed, is actually an open-ended straight draw to the nuts on both sides. A quite strong hand where you will make the nuts on a board without a flush draw. So this is a really quality draw. In fact, it's really the best draw that's possible on this board. Now, Rick decides to slow down with his King 10 offsuit in the small blind. And by the way, this is one reason why you don't do this play. When you do get calls, oftentimes it will be 5 of them. And then on boards where you miss, you can almost never bluff. And then on boards where you hit, oftentimes you will be beat. If you flopped the 10, you would have just been stone dead. If you flopped a king, you would have been outkicked. I mean, realistically, this guy had almost no chance to win the pot, and he put in $300 pre-flop. So don't be this guy. Don't be Rick. I don't know Rick. Maybe he's a nice guy. Maybe he's doing well in things outside poker. But if you like to have money from playing poker, don't play like Rick. Now, if I'm sitting here with pocket 10s like AJ is, I think I like starting to bet and see where this goes. You know the player on the button who has an 8 in his hand face up? That's right, face up. You know you're going to be ahead of him. The pre-flop raiser is unlikely to have you beat either. He might see bet the flop. And realistically, unless one of these guys has a pocket pair that flopped a set, which is the case, you're probably going to be ahead. Maybe you lose to a hand like 7-5 suited, but overall, you're going to have the best of it here quite often. And it's important to thin the field. You know, with 10s on this flop, you're not really happy with almost any turn that's on a 10 or maybe a 3 or a deuce. There really aren't that many great turns for a 10. So I like his decision to go ahead and bet here, thin the field, see where you're at, get a little information about your opponent's range, and then if there are any pesky gutters or overcards out there, you get those guys to fold as well. So action folds to Andrew in the hijack with pocket 3s. And, you know, I don't really hate either play here in Andrew's shoes. I think with 3s, could definitely argue for raise, get a little value. There could be some straight draws or pairs or over pairs you get some value from, so I don't hate that decision. Also, don't mind trapping, don't mind calling. One thing that's worth saying is that the more multi-way you are in pots, the more you have to sometimes put in strong hands into calls. Kind of like this hand, maybe we can get a little pop-up or something that I put in the bike recently. And by recently, I mean in February. Anyway, so action now folds to the button for Harry. And he does not really have much option. Even though his 8 is face up, he could maybe have 9-8, he could maybe have 8-7, he could maybe have 8-5 or 8-4 suited. There are a decent amount of hands here that he could have. Here is the issue though. He's calling a bet of 1,100 on the flop, which was actually like a pretty big bet for AJ when he did decide to bet here. We're talking about 2/3 pot or so. So can he call on the flop with a hand like 8-4 suited? It seems pretty debatable to me. You know, maybe he could, but the problem is going to be that it's very obvious when you hit that straight. Sure, you might have other 4s out kicked, but calling a bet that large with simply just a gutter, not to mention your ability to bluff, is going to be hammered because they can see one of your cards. Anyway, his draw is really strong, so there's not really much way around it. He's going to have to call, just getting direct odds to hit here on the turn. He does make the call, and let's take a turn.
Deuce of spade is the safest card in the deck almost for Andrew. 6-4 was already a straight. 5-4 is the only hand that got there on the turn. Andrew's in his head thinking, fuck yes. He's counting the money right now. 5,000 in the pot for the last hand of the day. Andrew playing 5K behind. If he goes all in here, it's only a pot-sized bet.
Hey, you're not
Harry
in the fucking hand, idiot.
with 8 high and
like that.
8 exposed.
By the way, Elder, thanks for the drink, though.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Good. Thanks for the slow roll with ace. It felt good.
Should have done it slower, actually.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
It would have been gentler if he would have done
Yeah.
slower.
Elder, why you gotta fucking talk? I'm in the fucking middle here.
28.
Obviously, what the fuck can I have? The best
Oh, I
hand
think
can
Andrew
have
has
is ace
8K.
I don't know.
six. Why are you fucking talking in the fucking hand?
What if it's 8-9?
They're all trying to figure out what Harry has because he has an 8 exposed.
So fucking-
He's mad.
Nobody sees your 8.
How much is that?
He's getting a good price, too. Harry has 20% equity and only has to put in 28 into 8. This is hilarious. He has some really small implied odds, but I mean, within 8 exposed, this is stupid.
I'll take your hand, dog. I would have given you the money.
Fucking Ryan and his rules.
I probably already snap called already.
Harry's mad as shit. He's like, stop talking about what I have.
Full top.
God damn it. Elder's like, you have an 8 exposed.
I know what I have.
What the fuck could you have?
Oh, you mug?
The bike is nothing without it.
Yes,
I don't think Harry's going to do it. I think if Harry didn't have the 8 exposed, it might have played way
I
differently in
wish
this
I had my
spot.
caca. You know what I'm saying? Because then we would have had a good time. Then we had a good time.
I'm not going to lie, like,
Caca.
getting able to hang out with Rick today
Oh, shit, that's caca. Oh, that's caca. Put it together. Caca.
was awesome. I need more Rick in my life. The guy's the fucking
You
nuts.
should, bro. That's life right there.
gonna
Man.
quote
You
you
want
on
you want those hands right here.
You need me on the wall. You want me on the
Andrews is like beyond ecstatic right now. It's the last hand of the day. He's already up 8K. If Harry calls here and the
Baby
river rolls off at
money.
9, that would be so sick. We're doing math, chat. Hang on while we're doing some math. We're counting the odds. If he folds and it comes, tilt. And if he calls and it misses, tilt. So average expectation here is just straight tilt.
Pair of chairs. You're about to call your pair of chairs.
He's calling. He's calling with an 8 of diamonds exposed. He calls.
I know, but
To the river, AJ folds correctly. To the river.
The turn comes to the deuce of spades, and this is actually getting to be a kind of interesting spot for tens. You know you're ahead of the button always because this card actually did not make any hands that he could even have that beat you. So you know you're safely ahead of Harry's range or his entire possible range. But Andrew's call has to give you a little bit of concern. Now, you know, the question is how loose is Andrew of a player? If he's a tighter player, you might want to consider doing a decent amount of checking here on the turn. Against looser players, though, you're going to have to just fire this deuce of spades. You know, yeah, I know that ace-4 got there. That was a double gutter on the flop. But, you know, 6-4 obviously hasn't improved. It was nuts on the flop. It's still nuts on the turn. And other than that, there's not really many two-pair hands that could hit this deuce. They're not going to have deuces three-way. So I think I actually like the decision from AJ to go ahead and bet. He disagrees. And his opponent has a set, so maybe he has a pretty good read on the way Andrew's playing. Maybe he's a more conservative player. Now, to Andrew, with a set, with one face up, 8 behind, and an unknown range in the small blind, or in the big blind rather, I think you're going to have to go ahead and bet and get some value. I do not think you want to trap. I think you have to try and build this pot. And I honestly like his size to bet here. It's his $2,800 bet. He's got around $5,600 behind. Good bet, standard play. I like his play. Seems totally fine, to be honest with you. Now, for Harry on the button, things just simply do not get easier for you, my friend, because now you're again drawing to the nuts on both sides, and you're getting a relatively attractive price here of 3-1, but there aren't many hands other than 8-6 that can call the turn. It would be pretty ambitious to call on the turn with 8-7, even though it is top pair, because your hand is literally face up. You know, unless you do have 8-6. So I think you just have to fold. It's going to be too clear what cards are going to be good for your opponents and what's going to be bad for you. So that just hurts your odds tremendously. However, you're getting pretty close to almost direct odds. If this bet was more like 1,800 or 2,000, you'd be getting direct odds. So it's close. You know, if you want to just argue that you think you make enough money when you hit, sure, right there on the cusp. But again, I would probably look to let it go. He does ultimately decide to make the call. And the 10s gets out of here pretty quickly. He must have really thought that there was no way he was good. Again, pretty solid read here from AJ, but I don't think a good play for you guys at home trying to get better. Don't bet over pairs as a check fold to turn on bricks. You know, keep betting or check call or, you know, do something that wasn't this. All right, so we're down to heads up. We're taking a river. Who will win? What will the river be? Let's see what it is.
11K in the pot. Don't do it. This would be the sickest. Oh my God. Don't do it. Oh, okay. Only a 4 makes a straight here, and Harry has an 8 exposed. So there's just no fucking way Harry has 8-4. And if Harry moves in, Andrew's just gonna cry call. There's 11,000 in the pot. Harry only has 2.7K, and Andrew's stack is the effective stack here. So this is an all-in from Andrew, and please don't fuck me up with the 8-4. Oh, he has 6K behind still here. So oh, he had like 8K behind or 6K behind still here. There was more money behind for Andrew. He had a lot more to risk here, and he bet really small on the river. He bet 600, and Harry went all in. And now Andrew has a lot to lose. He's an 8 exposed, but he could have 8-4 here. I mean, it really doesn't make any sense though if he had 8-4, but 8-4 turned double gutted. The 6 and the ace makes a straight. Oh my God! I don't believe he folds. This would be the sickest. It's an 8 of diamonds exposed.
All right, so the river is the ace. Now 4 is a straight. And this is where things get really weird from Andrew. He decides to bet $600. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with No Limit Hold'em, you want to bet usually around half the pot, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. If you want to get real crafty, you can maybe go for like a 30% pot size. I don't think 6% pot is a thing. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's a thing. It's not a thing. So yeah, I would say in this river, you should probably just be betting for value because, you know, 8-4 doesn't really make any sense. 8-4 offsuit, there's no way that hand could play like that. 8-4 suited. Can he really flip the flop without the backdoor flush draw facing a pretty large flop bet? I'm going to say no, especially when it's face up that he has an 8. So, you know, this is a board where I'd feel like I'm almost always good. I actually don't know whether I think my opponent would be more likely to have 8-7 and being stubborn or 8-6. Maybe his thoughts were that when he bets this small, he gets rid of the 8-6s or possibly induces and always gets a call from a 7. I'm not exactly sure what he's going for here, but when the pot's 11K and you've got 5K, you should probably just jam or check your opponent and try and trap. I lean a bit more towards jam. I think that there is a chance he does just have 8-7 and will probably consider calling a jam, at least because that drink looks pretty empty. So yeah, I'd probably go for the jam or the check. But the $600 is going to work out in a pretty big way here. Now, when Harry goes all in on the river, there's a lot of complexity here. But the main thing is that there isn't any complexity. Do not do this. He's saying he has 8-4 of diamonds, and that just does not really make any sense. I mean, maybe he knows that he would always continue with 8-4 on the flop. Then he turned the double gutter. You know, turn I think makes more sense than the flop does. But, I mean, dude, come on, man. It's clear that you're more likely to have 8-7 or 8-6. I don't see any reason to try and bluff here. Your opponent can't even really have that many weak hands. They call it multi-way. I mean, like, just don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do the whole thing. Don't show the card. Don't do the bluff. Don't do the this and the that. I mean, at least I can respect going for it. You know, if you're going to show one card, you're going to sometimes bluff anyway. But it just isn't really credible to say that you have the 8-4 here. And, yeah, for some reason, the guy with the set doesn't snap this off.
He bets 600, and Harry shows him the 8 again.
8 high.
8 high. This is so sick. What the fuck? This is the sickest. I didn't realize he was behind that much. This is a nasty spot.
8 high.
Harry, he keeps saying what he actually has. Harry loves this spot. He's like, fuck yes, this is one of the few cards I can bluff on, please. And the guy bets 600. He's like, all in. Bro, if Andrew folds here,
You can't lose 2 in a row to me.
if Andrew folds, there's no way. There's just no way. If Harry wins this hand,
Oh, we're good.
oh, he calls. He called.
Wave 3.
He said, fuck it, I call. I call. No good.
Of course I could have had the 8-4 for sure.
Almost for Harry here.
How much?
Almost.
Poker hands where we learn to not show our whole cards when people are in the pot and we have a hand. And then post flop, we don't bluff where our hand makes no sense and they can straight up see one of our fucking cards. That's my job for the day, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh yeah, one more thing before we go. We do have a giveaway going. It's going to be closing tomorrow. If you guys want to enter, you can do so in the description below.